Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Hostetler, and the article I read this week was A Nation at Risk. And the context of this article was it was written in 1983, and this was during the time of Ronald Reagan and his presidency. And so during this time, the article opens up with Our Nation is at Risk. And that was referring to how America used to be this untouchable country with industry and science and technology, but then now other countries have started to become more competitive and actually surpassing America in our standings amongst other countries. And it touches upon how our society started losing sight of our high expectations in education. And so the concerns that the article was talking about were how industry and commerce have started to fall far below other countries. And it was talking about how like the intellectual and moral and spiritual strengths of our nation were also falling behind in addition to the industry and commerce. And so some of these factors that the article were talking about, how some of the statistics were really alarming at this point. And so the risks were like 23 million American adults are functionally illiterate. And then 13% of all 17-year-olds are also considered illiterate. And a lot of this was also referring to the academic, like the standardized scores and how we were falling behind in comparison to other countries. And so a factor of this that was concerning is more and more people are becoming more illiterate, but the world around us is continuing to progress. And so technology being a part of that is, during this time, computers started to become more popular, and how they were predicting in the future, which is now, how technology will be a huge part of our society, and how having illiterate people would not be able to functionally be productive members of society, which would contribute to our continuing falling behind. So this article, what really resonated with me was kind of the tipping point of STEM. It was like the motivator during this time was stepping back and realizing, well, this is happening, and so what do we need to do about it? And so the ontology of this article, so what is this thing called STEM? The article never explicitly says STEM education, or we need to incorporate STEM, the actual word STEM. It started to discuss how, because we're falling behind, we need to, in education and in our schools, reform our education expectations, and how we need to incorporate more science and technology, engineering, and math. So again, it didn't explicitly say this, but it started to plant the seed of how can we start to make programs or teach teachers to educate their students about these programs and subjects. And so that kind of leads into the epistemology of this article, which is how should we teach STEM? Something that I really liked as a first grade teacher is the idea of honing in on our students' natural abilities and then celebrating them and then continuing to develop them from an early age. So me being a first grade teacher, I like the idea of taking their natural abilities at a young age, as early as 5 or 6, and then building on that ground, like laying the groundwork foundation and then continuing to build off of that. And so by incorporating science, technology, engineering, and math, students are able to celebrate their natural abilities and then continue to progress as they get older. And then that leads into the axiology, so the value of STEM education. The article discusses a lot about how we need to reproduce productive members of society, and how we can't have illiterate members who are not contributing in a positive way. We need to establish our high expectations in education, and part of that being STEM. And so we have to, as educators, teach how STEM is kind of a key to unlock a lot of different careers that will help promote America and make it and make our country more competitive again by producing productive members of society. And lastly, they discussed the idea of the American dream, and how the American dream is to go to school, become well educated, and then produce and contribute to the world around us. And more specifically in this article is our nation. And so the idea of, as teachers, we need to teach our students this. And so I really found this article to be very interesting, because it was not an explicit article about what is STEM, how can we teach STEM, how can we incorporate it in our classroom. It was kind of the motivating aspect of why do we need STEM, and how it would impact our world. And so I enjoyed reading it and learning about where it kind of started, and seeing where we are now with it is such an interesting aspect of education. So thank you so much for listening.